Hello and welcome everyone. We're going to get started now. Most of our attendees have joined already, so we'll go ahead and get started. There we go. So everyone is in listen-only mode for today's webinar. If you would like, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And if you'd like to enter questions, please enter them in the box here. And as usual, if you have to make a sudden exit from the webinar or cannot complete, it will be posted in our e-learning platform along with all of our other webinars that regularly get posted there. So you can follow it after if you like, or share it with colleagues. Today, joining me, myself, is I'm Peter Muller, Director of the Americas for Schlafender Hase, and joining me is Mike Baird, our Director of Product Management. Hello, Mike, how are you?
Hi, Peter, very good, thanks. Hi, everyone.
Excellent, excellent. I will go through a quick overview of the kind of history of TVT and give you a little bit of insight into that and why barcode. So in October 2018, we introduced TVT artwork. That was followed by TVT spelling, and now we're at TVT barcode, and that's what we're doing today. One of the questions I frequently get asked by clients and prospects is why do we have this modular approach? And if you can think of it, TVT is a platform, and it can be applied to multiple places in the workflow. So, for example, if you're in regulatory affairs, you may be interested in using TVT text comparison and TVT spelling. If you're further on in the workflow, such as in labeling or packaging team or the artwork team, you might be interested in using TVT artwork and TVT barcode. So the flexibility with TVT, it allows you to license the different components that you'd like to use on a per user basis. And so that's what we're going to focus on today is TVT barcode. It was actually released with TVT 10.2, which we had a couple webinars last week. If you missed those, you can also find those in the e-learning platform. So I guess the primary question is, why would you want to check your barcodes? So the first point is obviously everything nowadays has a code on it. Our cartons, our labels, our inserts, they all have different codes on them. Additionally, these codes can be 1D or 2D codes. Codes are typically not part of your standard manuscript when it's created by regulatory affairs or approved by the FDA, for example. They're a manual step that's added later on into your packaging. So that therefore increases the risk of having an error. All codes are kind of unique. You have different types of codes. Different regions of the world use different codes. Some countries in Europe have their own specific types of codes that they support and want you to use in your packaging. So TVT allows you to do all of those kind of unique codes that are applicable in life sciences. And obviously the risks are pretty high. You know, getting the wrong code on the wrong package or getting an incorrect code on the package can, you know, result in a recall or even in the worst case scenario, you know, consequences or issues with patient health. With that brief introduction, I am now going to pass the presenter rights to Mike so that he can go through and present TVT barcode to us. Mike?
Very good, thanks, Peter, and good morning, everyone. Okay, so let's see what TVT barcode can do. So as Peter pointed out, TVT barcode is designed specifically to detect, decode, compare, and grade the most commonly used codes in the packaging and labeling workflow. And here I'm going to show you how we can do that. So here is TVT. I've already loaded this sample project. For those of you who are familiar with TVT, you can see that the view is pretty much the same as it always has been, but now there are a couple of minor updates. First thing is, up here we have the new barcode mode button, which can also be activated using the F4 key And this works in the same way as the image mode button, if you're familiar with that. So that means it allows users to draw manual areas around their barcodes if they need to. I guess the question is, why would you want to do that if TVT is designed to automatically do that? Well, I'll get to that in a second. Down here then in the project window, you can see that we have a new tab, which is the Barcode tab. This is where all the detected codes in the documents are displayed. So if we just look at that there briefly, in this pre-comparison state, you can see that TVT has given us a list of the codes it's found, along with the thumbnails and their positions within each of the documents. And then lastly, in this view, down here in the status bar, where the project information is displayed, we can see how many codes TVT has detected in each document in this project. Okay, so now we'll perform the comparison as you would normally. So we hit the compare button, and there we are. You can see that TVT has detected most of the codes in these two cartons. And the reason I highlighted that is that down here in the barcode list, you'll see we have 3 barcode pairs. These are the ones that are highlighted in yellow, and that means that TVT has automatically detected them and linked them. The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that there are 2 linear codes here that haven't been detected and are not in the list, and that's deliberate for the purposes of this demo. And the idea is that I'm going to show you how you can detect them manually. So the idea of the manual detection, as I mentioned before, is that if for some reason you had turned off the particular setting for these codes in auto detection and hadn't turned it back on prior to doing this comparison, then there's a very easy way to find these codes without having to reset the project and start again from scratch. So I simply click on the barcode button, I go down to the code I want to find, and I draw a rough box around it, and TVT will snap to the barcode in question, and then it appears in the list. I'll do the same thing again on the copy document. Again, roughly around the same area, TVT finds it, and there we go. We have 2 codes detected. Now, at this point in time, they're not linked by TVT because we've manually detected them. So I have an option here where I can pick one for linking, like so, and then I go down to the next one and I right click and I can link this one with the one I picked previously. So now we have a barcode pair. What I can also do, if I don't want to pair them, is I can split them or unlink them by doing this. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to leave them paired. Okay, so over here in the details view, you can see there's quite a lot of interesting information here about this pair of codes. So we have a grading result up here, more about that in a second. Then we have the encoded data string for each. We've got the symbology of each or the type of code. So in this case, it's a 1 to 8, but it could be an EAN 13 or a UPCA or a QR code or whatever it is. We also have its position within the document, and then we have its dimensions. So you can also see, as was mentioned earlier, there's an obvious error in this string of encoded data. And as Peter said, these are the kind of errors that can have really serious consequences down the line if they're not picked up early in the document review process. Okay, going back to grading, we can see there's a collapsed group of information under the heading grading here. When I uncollapse that, you can see this information here, and this helps you to determine whether the code is actually technically correct beyond just the encoded data. So each type of code has its own grading criteria applicable to it, and really no 2 are the same. So while there may be some commonalities between codes, different symbologies or types of codes have different sets of results. And these criteria are taken from internationally recognized organizations such as ISO and GS1. So one thing you will have noticed straight away are some of the characters are displayed in red. These are the differences between the original and the hard copy and the copy versions of the codes. And in the case of grading, if the code has failed, the red characters show you why it's failed. So in this case, you can see that the copy version has failed grading because of the quiet zones. And the quiet zones are the clear space that surrounds the code or either side of the code. In this case, it means they are too small, and that's because of all the ink, if you can see here, that's surrounding the code itself. This would be a huge problem if it made it into the market in this state, because the code simply wouldn't be detected and then it's not going to scan. So as Peter said before, a recall and a reprint would be necessary as a minimum. Okay, and finally, in terms of the controls, up here we have an existing button that's been around in TVT for a while now, but we can use this when we're looking at barcodes. And if I press it, and it's called the toggle format information markers button, which is quite a mouthful, but if I press that, what it does here is shows us the direction that TVT primarily processes or reads each of the codes. And this is particularly useful here for these pharma codes, because pharma codes, as you can see down here, and as you probably know, can be encoded in either direction. Now, because pharma codes are different to, let's say, regular barcodes, as in they have no start-stop patterns, they have no human readable numbers, and they have no check digits, TVT has no idea what the intended read direction is. So in this case, it displays both results for the user to select from. Okay, so now let's go back to the barcodes in the list here and let's start to process them. So this, for those of you who are TVT users, this is as familiar to you as processing any other type of deviation. The first barcode pair is the pharma codes, as we just talked about. Everything over here is in blue, so we know that they're okay. We know that, therefore, I'm happy with those, so I'm going to accept them. The same applies for the second pair of pharma codes. Same thing again, so I'll go up here and I shall accept those. Now down to the QR codes. Now, pretty much everything looks okay, apart from there's an obvious difference in the encoded data within these codes. Now, these are just mock-ups, but there is, the letters have been transposed between these two. In a normal QR code out in the marketplace, you would probably have some sort of URL or web address in there. And obviously, if that was spelled incorrectly, that would be a huge problem. So at this point, I can see, I can tell that although they are both flagged as being potentially incorrect, I know that the original one is correct because I know how we spell our company's name. So I can go over here and I can mark this in the copy because the copy is incorrect. And bear in mind, once again, if this gets out there into the marketplace, again, this could be very costly to resolve. And then finally, to the pair of codes that we manually detected and paired. So there are lots of problems in here. We saw before the grading has an issue with the quiet zones. There are errors throughout here. There are even different types of codes. One is a regular code 128 and one is a specific GS1 128. I don't know at this point which one is the intended code for this pack. So in this case, I can simply mark this in both, and then a decision can be made about which is correct. Okay, so I've processed my codes, as you can see from that list. So ignoring everything else, because we're just looking at the codes here, I can then go up to export, click on that, and I can create the audit trail report from here. So I shall do that now. I'm happy with everything that's in there, and I would like to see the report once I have saved it. Okay, so there we go. The report is open. I'll just enlarge that a little bit. So it looks pretty similar to the existing reports with a couple of exceptions. Firstly, we can see here on which pages I performed code detection, automatic code detection. In this case, page 1, because it was a single page document. Further down here, I can see which codes were enabled initially for auto detection, and I'll get to that in a second. But this gives us a list here of the codes that I had previously set for auto detection. And you'll notice there is no code 128 in there, which is why we were able to manually match the code 128s on those example documents. Further down here, you can see that beyond the regular deviations, we have the barcode deviations. And this basically lists all of the information that we saw previously within the barcode list and within the details view, including the grading information. And it also tells by the blue or the red what activity I performed with each of those codes. And then finally, in the project state table here, there is a summary of my activities. Down at the bottom, we can see how many barcodes were detected overall, what kind of codes and their quantities, and what's happened with them. Okay, so let's go back into TVT here. And then I can talk about the settings that got us to that point in the report now. So if we go into the project menu and we go down to user settings, this again is very familiar, but there is a new addition, which is the TVT Barcode Tab. And this basically gives us some options over how barcode detection takes place. So which pages would I like to see it on? Again, in this case, it was a single page document, but if it was a multi-page document, you have some choice here, because for an example there's a little tooltip. If you went to choose it on all pages to look for barcodes on every page, that could impact on the speed of the comparison. So we give the user the option, if they know in advance that there is only a barcode on the first or the last or a page somewhere specifically, then they can look for that. Or they might not want to check for barcodes at all, so you can also turn it off. There is also the ability to decide whether you want to grade the codes or not, because maybe not everybody does. And then finally, you have this list of barcodes here, and these are the supported codes for auto detection within TVT Barcode. And you can basically turn them on or off. And we give you that option for a reason. If you're a user that only ever looks for 3 types of code and you don't care about any of the other ones on the list, then potentially, as we said before, if you're detecting lots of things, it could slow down the comparison by a couple of seconds. Why would you want to waste that time? So you can turn off the things that you don't need. And that's a persistent feature. So once you've turned them off, then they stay off until you turn them back on again. Another point to note here is that lots of codes are repurposed. So the standard code is, in this example, the EAN13, and that's what we would call a data carrier. And the data carrier has a name, and it could be EAN13. It could also be the Austrian PZN or the Swiss Medic code, because different health authorities around the world, particularly in Europe, have repurposed the base data carriers and added their own information into it to make a regional specific or a health authority specific code. So we've given the user some information there about which of those have that particular information encoded as well. And then finally, down here, there is a link, help with barcode names. And if you click on that, it simply takes you to a section in our help, which will give you some alternate barcode names, just in case the user is unfamiliar with the names that, the naming conventions that TVT has chosen. Okay, so that's how we detect, decode, compare, and grade barcodes in TVT. Hopefully you can see it's very straightforward, it's very fast, and it's also very familiar if you're an existing user. Okay, so at this point, I will now hand control back to Peter. There we go. Thanks for your attention.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Mike. So we'll just go through a quick recap here before we get to the question and answer session. Once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat text there, and we'll get to them hopefully at the end of the webinar. If we don't get to all of your questions, no worries. As you probably know, we'll follow up with you very rapidly following the webinar to answer any questions we couldn't get to. So to summarize, when you license TVT Barcode, it adds, the barcode detection option that we see here up on the toolbar. It adds the tab to the list of different types of items that we're checking for in the bottom. And it gives you a listing of how many barcodes are being detected in both your original and your copy. And as Mike mentioned, it also adds the user settings window where you can control how the barcode comparison is performed by TVT. Furthermore, it adds the TVT, the grading criteria that we've used, the data that's contained inside the barcode, the symbology, and also any positional information here. If we go through, we can also toggle information markers on and off, so you can see which direction TVT is primarily reading the code. And in the case of something like a pharma code or latest code, it can tell you the direction that it's reading from top to bottom or from bottom to top, because those codes are basically bi-directional. They can be read in both directions, and TVT doesn't know that because there's no information in the barcode, so it displays both, and you can see which both directions are read and decide which is the correct direction. Finally, as Mike mentioned, we have the new tab, which allows us to control which pages, or if barcodes are detected at all, which pages they're detected on. And you can think of this in a very large medical device manual. Maybe we might have a barcode on the cover page, but no codes in the remaining 300 pages in our IFU or DFU. So we wouldn't want to spend all the time looking for codes when we know they're not there. Same thing with performing the grading. If you don't want to do that, you can disable that. And this is the codes, list of codes that TVT currently supports. Once again, this is tuned for life sciences. There are many, many other barcodes out there used for consumer goods, on your airplane tickets, all kinds of different barcodes. We have the ability to add codes in the future. If you find one that you would like, please just let our support department know, and we can look into adding that. However, speaking with all of the customers and all of the users we have, this should cover the vast majority of all codes that are used in life sciences. And finally, we'll get to the question and answer section. So let me go backwards. I clicked a little bit too aggressively. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in there, and we'll go ahead and ask them, or we'll go ahead and answer them rather. Mike, can you see any questions yet?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah. Yes, there's a question about magnification, which we actually had yesterday as well. Do we support magnification? And I guess that refers to when we showed the grading list there. I'm well aware that magnification wasn't in the grading list. And as I tried to explain, that was just a snapshot on those particular codes of the kind of grading that we do. We do support magnification, and we support it for the codes that officially have magnification applied to them, which is kind of a little known fact, I think, that it's only a handful of codes. I think it's been kind of converted over the years to a generic term that applies to all barcodes, but that's not actually true. So the codes that have officially have magnification applied to them are the ones that we support.
Excellent, thanks, Mike. Just looking through the list here. When can he have it? Mike, when can we have our TVT barcode?
You can have TVT Barcode right now. It was released in conjunction with, and in fact, it's only available with the upgraded version of TVT, which is 10.2, which was released last week. So if you want it today, you can have it today.
Excellent. And just to, I guess, kind of add to that, if you'd like your upgrade, or you're interested in seeing a personalized demo of TVT Barcode, please go ahead and either contact your account manager if you know who that is. If you don't, you can always forward a request either for the upgrade to 10.2 or for a personalized demo of TVT Barcode using your samples to this address. So tvt@sh-p.com.
I've got another one here, Peter, if that's okay. How many barcodes does TVT support? So I thought we mentioned this, but maybe we didn't. TVT supports 25 barcodes, and these are focused on really the most commonly and widely used 1 and 2D codes within packaging and labeling. Some are very specific for pharmaceutical and life sciences. Some are more retail oriented, like EANs and UPCs, but 25 is the answer to that question.
Excellent, thanks, Mike. Okay, here's a good question, Mike. Why not A and F grading?
Right, okay, so that refers to our pass and fail then, I guess. So yes, without going into a huge amount of detail, A to F is used in printed material. It's used in a situation where there could be variability between the quality of a code. So the ISO grading standards would be A, B, C, D, and F. There's no E. F is a fail. The other ones, A to D, are variables between almost perfect, which is A at the top end, to D. It's not great, but it might still scan. What we're doing here with TVT Barcode is we're scanning digital files. We're not scanning printed material. So if you think of it in digital terms, a digital element in a digital file, it's very binary. It's either right or it's wrong. There's no printing to take place with low contrast inks or problems with the substrate or anything like that. We're checking the codes within the document. So it's either a pass or it's a fail. If you're trying to grade a digital file over a range, it's just misleading.
Okay, that makes sense too. So, I know a lot of people are worried about bleed on a printed code, and if the bars bleed into each other, and they're even, parameters to adjust that, and that's not something that we're looking for, and it would be kind of silly to look for those types of criteria, right, Mike?
Exactly, yeah. But also linked to that is bar width reduction, which is, as you're aware, the amount of the percentage of growth or loss that's applied to the individual bars or the modules in the case of 2D codes to allow for that ink spread, that bleed when it gets on press. So although we don't grade against the bleed, we give the user the information about how much barcode reduction has been applied so that they can tell if the pre-press process has been done correctly.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we are coming up on, actually, no, we just hit it. We're right at 30 minutes now. For any questions that we didn't get to, we will follow up with you. Want to thank Mike today for staying a little bit later to help provide a demo to the folks across the pond.
My pleasure. Thank you, Peter.
Excellent. So everyone have a great day. And again, feel free to get in touch with your account manager or contact us at the email address on screen, and we'll be happy to give you some more information about TVT Barcode. So I wish everyone a great day, and thank you for attending.
Thanks, everyone.